feel the fear and do it anyway.
Good things come to those who work hard and never give up.
Be better than you were yesterday.
Don't compare your chapter 1 to someone else's chapter 20.
Be the best version of yourself because somebody else has already taken.
Don't be afraid to go that extra mile, because when you do, you realise there aren't that many people out there.
Hello and welcome to She Has a Goal in Mind, brought to you each week by Darcey Morris and Gabriella Jukes.
On this episode we have Georgia Adderley, a true trailblazer in the world of football. As a FIFA licensed and FA registered football agent, Georgia is breaking the mould with her work at Ad Management, where she champions women's football and sports. Tune in to hear about her journey to becoming a football agent, her experiences in a traditionally male-dominated field, and her vision for advancing women's football. Yeah, thank you for joining us. We're so excited to have you on the podcast. We haven't had a football agent on the podcast before, so it's a first for us.
Okay, well, hopefully I don't disappoint. I'm not a traditional football agent, so yeah, we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, we love that anyway, because if you have a different story, it's a different perspective, and obviously we love to hear all about your life anyway. So yeah, we're excited.
Yeah, you definitely
awesome.
Breaking the mold anyway.
Yeah, trying to. I'm going to remove my headphones. Sorry, they're not really working. So yeah, so I think because I'm not necessarily like a traditional agent, I might not have necessarily like the most football agency answers. So like my background is like sports marketing and PR, like which I'll talk about. So like there probably will be people saying, oh, like I don't know, an agent wouldn't do that. I get a lot of like hate, let's say, on TikTok. So yeah.
Really? Gosh. Why do you think that is? Why? From what sort of audience would you say that's from?
Male people interested in football.
Of course it is.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm happy to talk about it. Obviously, won't go into detail, but yeah, it's not the easiest thing.
Well, we think it's brilliant what you're doing. Again, we don't really see that many females, I guess, as in the industry as you are, in such a male-dominated industry as being a football agent. So I guess to start things off, would you kind of share about your journey into becoming a football agent? How was that process, and how did that even come about? Like, at what point did you decide I want to be a football agent?
Yeah, I think it's not necessarily a traditional approach, I would say. So I'm not one of these people that's been a football agent for 20 years. I'm not like an old guy in a suit, you know. I've worked in PR and marketing, so that was my background really. So a lot of what I did was sport. I was very, very much into sport and sports marketing. And I know a lot of people in women's football and football in general, and they were saying, Georgia, like, why don't you just be an agent? You know, you do the off the pitch stuff. Why don't you do the on the pitch? I'd not really thought about it. But last year, FIFA introduced the FIFA football agent license. So they've basically regulated it now. So it's a lot better, and hopefully will be better in the next few years. So I did the exam and passed, which was great. So yeah, I did that last year, and now in my first sort of full year of being a football agent, just about surviving this summer transfer window. And yeah, I didn't necessarily have the traditional route to it, but now with the FIFA exam, a lot of people can, you know, have the opportunity to become an agent and be part of sort of a more regulated system with FIFA.
Would you say you've always been interested in sport and always loved football?
Yeah, I wouldn't say I've always loved football, but I've always been interested in sport. I think as a kid, you know, throughout my whole life, I've played different sports. And I feel like football is a really, really great way to bring people together. So my whole house, nobody likes football. My dad likes rugby and likes golf. I mean, I think I love golf, but it's so boring to watch. So that's another story. But for football, I never grew up with it. So I kind of found it, I'd say, traditionally later in life. And I just found it was a great way to make friends, to meet people, obviously bring communities together. So it's become a huge part of my life. But I think sport in general has always been there. And yeah, I love how it brings people together and creates communities.
No, definitely. It is that sort of environment, isn't it? Especially, I guess, the female side of sport as well. A lot of females get involved because of that reason. guess it's new community, meeting people, making friends, networking, and especially, I guess, in the industry that you're in, it's a massive boost, I guess, as well, to be able to expand your network with. There's so many incredible women involved now in football in all aspects, all different areas as well. So it's great to see people like yourself getting involved in the non-traditional sort of side of it for females. So it's fantastic to hear that, you know, you gained that interest. What would you say, kind of, you brushed upon it maybe a little bit at the start. What are some of the most challenging aspects of, I guess, being a football agent? And what is involved, actually? If I'll start with that, what is involved in being a football agent? What is it that you actually kind of do?
I think there's sort of a few aspects to it. I think traditionally a football agent would be somebody that would help a player move from club to club, maybe go out on loan, which is still a big part of being an agent. But I like to think of myself as more of a modern agent. So looking at the player more holistically on the pitch and off the pitch, especially when we look at women's sport and women's football. Realistically, the salaries are perhaps not as high as men's football. So I'm really passionate about helping women make money off the pitch. So whether that's through brand deals, partnerships, or is it through something that they're really passionate about and a dual career option for them as well. So I think I like to think of myself as more of a modern agent. I look at maybe not so traditional things, but you've got the basics, okay? So moving players sort of from club to club, supporting players in their development. Perhaps they've gone through an academy at one club, which is becoming more popular in the women's game as well now. But take the men's game, coming through the academy, getting to 16, do they get offered a pro contract at the club they're at, or do they need to look elsewhere, or do they need to consider other options outside of football? So an agent is supposed to be somebody who supports people through that process and helps negotiate with clubs. So a lot of my summer has been spent trying to find my players moves to clubs, whether that be on like a loan or a dual registration or on a permanent move. So it's been very busy. It's very hectic. And you speak to thousands of people at different clubs. I had one player who said to me, Georgia, I just want to live somewhere different, anywhere but England. I've always played in England, any country in the world. So that was really fun and exciting to chat to so many people from different clubs in different countries, different languages. And yeah, so a lot of the job is focused on that. But of course, players can only move at certain times of the year. So they can only move during the summer or during the January transfer window. So I think the agent, the rest of the year, a lot of it now is focused on commercial work. So helping players with their sort of brand and their brand image, which is something, like I said, I'm so passionate about. So I think each day is so different, which is probably why I love it, because it's such a mix. The summer obviously has been hugely focused on that club move, but as players are now settled, they're in their clubs, it's now looking at sponsorships, things more off the pitch.
It sounds really interesting, actually, because obviously not each day is the same for you. But it sounds also like you have to be quite a personable person and build those relationships with the players, I suppose, and their families or their loved ones. So how would you say you build the trust with them?
I think that's something that's really, really important to me. And I only have a small number of players, and that is through choice, because I really want to just do the best possible job for my players. All of them are my friends. I know their families, I know their sort of life stories, and I really care about them. So I think having that, of course, within a professional setting, but having that connection to somebody is so important. And I have had players come to me and we're just not the right fit for each other. And I've recommended them to another agent. And, I know what my strengths are, which is definitely that sort of commercial stuff. So if somebody's not that interested in that, I'm probably not the best agent for them. But it is a lot of emotion, I would say. Like, football is an emotional sport anyway. We get so hooked into the ups and the downs on a club level, on a personal level. So it really is a game of emotions. And that's the same when you're an agent as well. You genuinely want the best for your players and try to get the best for them. I think agents do get a bit of a bad rep. Maybe this is sort of the old school traditional agent. I think there's less and less of those people in the game now. I do think there's a lot of people doing it for the right reasons. And it is hard to manage, though, those different personalities and different emotions in such an emotional sport like football.
Yeah, 100%. It's definitely, the game itself is modernising, isn't it? But especially with the female game, with having so many, media interests now compared to before. So there's always room for change, isn't there? And I think that's definitely what you're doing. And you mentioned there in your role, you speak to thousands of people from all clubs around the world. What would you say is their perspective when they kind of speak to you and realise, you're a woman in that male-dominated environment? Have you ever faced any kind of negativity aside from social media then?
Yeah, I think, like I said, I do get quite a lot of hate on social media, and it's something that you have to learn to get a thick skin about. It's not, most of the time, it's not personal. It's just a generic flippant comment. But I would say in the game, maybe initially people are surprised and they're like, who is this girl who's like super girly? And like, I'm always in a suit and like trainers, and they're like, who is this person? But then I think hopefully once they've worked with me, they see sort of my professionalism and that I'm doing things for the right reasons, which I think goes a long way in football. But yeah, it is about building those relationships. And obviously that can take years. And some people I've managed to build those relationships with, some people it's just at the beginning. And of course, there's so many personalities in football, so many politics and things going on. So I like to be a little bit different. I kind of like the fact that I stand out. I think you're perhaps more memorable than all the traditional agents that are quite similar, let's say. So yeah, I like to just have my own spin on things. And I am a woman in the game. I can work across men's football, women's football, also work across different sports. So we've got a couple of basketball players. So I like to just be a little bit different. And I think that's hopefully what makes me memorable and stand out as well.
You also mentioned there you obviously work with men and women. Would you say there's an imbalance between men's football and women's football? And how do you find that balance, if there is?
I wouldn't necessarily call it an imbalance. I think it's more of a difference. I just think they're not the same game. And some people don't like it when you say that, but I don't mean it in a bad way. It's genuinely a positive way. I think we should actually celebrate the differences between the two. I think the way you approach the men's game and the women's game is quite different. So often in the men's game, when you're contacting a club, there's so many different contacts, different age groups, different people. So when it comes to the women's game, often maybe it's one recruitment person or one general manager that you're dealing with. So it is a little bit easier to build those relationships. But I think it's just a case of, the time it takes maybe to build those relationships in the men's game, just because there's so many more people involved usually. But of course, that links to, higher salaries, bigger incomes for the club, more people doing different jobs. So it all links into that ecosystem of football. But yeah, like I said, I think there's differences between the two. And I personally believe that they should be celebrated. It's not a negative. Often, even when you look at audiences and fan bases, they're often quite different for men's and women's football. And I don't think that's a bad thing. It's an opportunity for growth. It's an opportunity for brands as well to sort of get that wider reach, which is something I'm really passionate about from like the brand and the marketing side as well.
Yeah. No, I definitely agree with you with that, because I'm sick of seeing people comparing it all the time. An example in Wales particularly was Jess Fishlock obviously broke the goal scoring record for Wales, and there was a post on social media where it was like Jess Fishlock, Helen Ward, Gareth Bale and Ian Rush, so there was like in order of goals scored. It was literally just celebrating that these incredible athletes have such a fantastic achievement in the sport. And then all the comments, as you can imagine, was like, how dare you compare Jess Fishlock to Gareth Bale? And it's like, nobody's comparing them here, we're celebrating such an amazing achievement. So yeah, I love the fact that you said there this about celebrating those differences. They are different games at the end of the day. Football is the same, but the elements can be different, and that's okay. There's no issue with that. So that's really
definitely. And honestly, I think maybe I'm just a super positive person in general. I just have to approach things with a positive head, which maybe sometimes is a negative in a way when you try and view everything so positively. But I really think things should be celebrated. And even looking at Viv Miedema, I know she's the top goal scorer for the Netherlands, but male and female. And that's something I talk about all the time. And people always say what about Van Persie? I'm like, yeah, Van Persie's up there. I think he's second though to Viv. So, but yeah, I actually think that what Wales and the Wales FA do in terms of the balance between men's and women's football is really great. Even in looking, I think, on Twitter, like everything is on the same sort of platform. And they seem to do it really well. You know, a lot of the engagement that they get on the women's content is really, really positive. Of course, not all the time, but I think they're actually leading the way, I'd say, out of the FAs that I've seen, particularly in the United Kingdom. And I think they're doing a really good job in Wales. So, yeah. And also Helen Wood is a friend of mine, so I'll give her a shout out as well. Now she's been knocked off by Jess.
I know. Fun. Yeah, we love Helen. She came on the podcast a couple of years back now. I think it was just as she was retiring as well. So yeah, she's fab.
Yeah. She was great.
Yeah.
She was great.
She's doing a great job over at Watford, obviously the general manager there. And that's a fantastic example of somebody moving from being a player to, moving into bettering the women's game from that general manager perspective. So, yeah, she's doing a great job. And I know involved with the FA in Wales as well. So, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And of course, she's obviously doing a bit of broadcasting now as well. And I know you had a degree in broadcast journalism. Is that something you would maybe be interested in pursuing at some point in your career? Because you talk so well and you're so knowledgeable about the sport. Would that be something you'd be interested in?
Yeah, I mean, never say never. I absolutely love broadcast journalism. I love doing stuff like this, podcasts, TV, radio. I really love it. And I love sharing that positive message. I think it didn't happen for me naturally after university to go into broadcast journalism. I ended up in PR, which I think being able to talk and talking to people was a huge skill that helped me with there. But yeah, absolutely. Sign me up if anybody's listening.
You could also do two at the same time. So you could be both.
Exactly. I think also as women in sport, like I listened to a couple of other people you've had on the podcast, and there was a common theme that we're all sort of juggling spinning different plates. And I don't think that's a bad thing. Again, they're all sort of interlinked, and broadcasting and speaking about sport is very similar to marketing sport. So I think they're all linked, and yeah, why not? We'll add it to the list.
Yeah, definitely. I think social media plays a big part in that these days as well, and allowing you to be able to do a lot of different kind of sides to things, which is fantastic.
It's kind of like your own brand, isn't it, really, if you think about it? Yeah,
I think so. I think for me, like, it's something that I help athletes with and content creators with, is like building that personal brand. And I did get called out by somebody that I work with, and I was like, you need to do this on Instagram, you need to get on TikTok doing this. And she's like, Georgia, you need to do it for yourself, like being an agent. So yeah, so watch this space. I'm trying to improve for myself, because I've spent so much time, giving it to others. And now I think, okay, maybe it's time to try and do that for my own personal brand now.
Yeah, so you should. I'm really interested in, obviously, your business. You own your own business. Can you just give us a bit of a background on how that came about and how, maybe the challenges in owning your own business?
Yeah. So like I said, I've always worked in PR and marketing. A lot of my passion was around sport. So I worked with some really big clients like sort of Adidas. The PGA Golf Tour was a great project that I worked on and just absolutely loved. So always been involved in PR and marketing. I worked for a big agency in Dubai for nearly 9 years. So was sort of always in that world. And then I moved back to the UK, and I was like, I'm going to do this for myself and, hopefully focus on clients and talent and brands that I really care about. So I founded Ad Management. So we're a marketing and talent growth agency. So we tend to focus on sport and wellness, a lot of our clients, but we do have some like new business, sort of local businesses, let's say, more traditional, and just helping them sort of modernize a little bit. So digital marketing, also helping them work with people like athletes and influencers to grow their business. So yeah, started about 6 months ago full time. So it's been a bit full on, but we're slowly growing, which is amazing. Got a small team now, and yeah, working on some really cool projects. So it's been really exciting to kind of marry my two passions together, of that like talent management and sport and wellness, as well as the background in sort of PR and marketing, and bring that together in one little happy place. So Ad Management is called, and even for me, like coming up with the name, it was like, what am I going to call this, this agency? And a lot of talent agencies, they're sort of 3 letters or they're one word. And I was like, what's like a really positive word that's like 3 letters? And my name is Georgia Adderley. And I always talk about adding value. Like, it's like, must say this like phrase like every single day, like let's add some value here. Like how can we add some value? And then, ad management, I was like, it's my name, adding value. And that's how we arrived at the name.
I love that. It's a no-brainer then as well, especially as it is in your name as well, isn't it? So,
exactly. I'm not going to forget it. So we're good.
No, great idea. And you mentioned that you lived in Dubai. How was that experience? And I guess how was that influenced you moving into that next stage in your career? Because I bet that was an incredible experience living over there.
Yeah, I mean, I would encourage anybody to move away from your home country, even if it's just for a short period of time, like just for the experience of meeting people and opening your mind to things. I lived there a lot longer than I anticipated living there. I went for a 6-month internship and was there for like nearly 9 years. So it was definitely not, I was not planned to be there that long. But what it really opened my mind to there was sort of this influencer marketing and celebrity marketing, because in the UAE in general, they don't have massive sort of personalities or celebrities. It's a lot of like influencers, or back then we used to call them bloggers. Now then they were influencers. Now we call them content creators. So it's really evolved, but it kind of threw me into the deep end of learning about that space. And it was a great experience. And I was involved with women's football over there. Ran a women's football club for a short time, got sponsored by Adidas, which was amazing. So lots of sort of experiences away from home. But I am a bit of a home bird, even though I've not lived here for so long. So I was so excited to be back and back closer to family and friends. And then, obviously bring some of those worldly experiences into my own business here in the UK.
Was the move to Dubai quite overwhelming for you, or were you always very ambitious and ready for more?
Yeah, I've always been very ambitious. I think as a kid, my mum and dad were just like, who is this crazy kid that we've got? But like I'm the oldest of 3 sisters. My sisters are quite a bit younger than me. The next one is 23, the next one is 17, and I'm 30. So we're all 7 years apart. So I was always just this leader and just this, right, I'm going to go and do this. And so I was not intimidated. Of course, like when I got there, I was like, oh my God, like, what am I doing? But slowly sort of found my way and ended up being there for so long, which is crazy to think about. But I think COVID also impacted that. Like COVID happened, I was working in sports marketing, and obviously the world like sports stopped. So I was like, great time to be working in sport. And like all of our salaries got cut sort of 50s, 25%. So it was really tough. So it kind of made me stay there a bit longer and sort of come out of the COVID madness. So I think if that hadn't happened, I might not have been there for as long. But I think COVID obviously changed so much in the world. I keep trying not to speak about it, but it seems to come up in conversation.
Yeah, it's something we can't avoid, I think.
I know.
At some point. You were saying that about, growing up and always being that leader and being ambitious. But did you have any role models, whether that's, I guess, in any industry, but particularly within sport, who kind of inspired you growing up?
Yeah, I get asked this question a lot, and it's quite difficult because back then I don't feel like there was as many sort of female sports people to look up to, or females in sport. I think one for me that stands out is Serena Williams. I think she's just an absolute boss. Obviously she owned it on the court, and I think what she's done off the court is just so impressive, an incredible businesswoman. And she's somebody that I've always looked up to since I was younger and still do now. She's also now more involved with sort of talent management and influencer marketing, which obviously I'm super passionate about. So she's been that consistent person that I've always looked up to and respected. But I think that there's obviously so many now. I think young people now have so many female athletes or female people in sport to look up to. But maybe when I was younger, it wasn't as common. I looked up a lot more to like sort of David Beckham and then the brand Beckham of David and Victoria, like loved them. But apart from that, really, there was no sort of women necessarily in sport that kind of stood out to me. So Serena Williams was always one that I come back to.
She's awesome. I think
no doubt
she comes up a lot. She comes up a lot in this podcast just because she's like a powerhouse of a woman, and I just think no one can deny that.
Exactly. Yeah, she's a great example, I think, on and off the court, and being a mother and everything she's achieved outside of that is just incredible. So yeah, I'm not surprised that she's come up a lot. You need to get her on the podcast.
I know, imagine.
Yeah.
That would be
dream.
the dream.
How important do you think it is then for the younger generation to have women they can see playing sport or playing football and have that, the female representative in that position for them to see?
It's incredibly important. I think we saw it obviously when England women won the Euros a couple of years ago now, like the impact that had on football in general, and particularly football and inspiration for young girls was incredible. And I think the more role models that we have out there, it's got to be a good thing. I think it's obviously something now where the women's game is growing so quickly. We've got to be careful it doesn't necessarily become like the men's game, and we still keep that sort of positive role model there. But I think it's amazing now that young girls have just got these incredible people, not just in football, also women's rugby is gaining huge popularity as well. We've got the Olympics on, the Paralympics coming so soon. So there's so many great women for young people to look up to now, both young boys and young girls as well.
100%. And especially you mentioned there with the Olympics, I think that's something we've really seen a boost of in the past couple of weeks, with obviously Simone Biles is like probably the top one, but also within the rugby sevens it's just kind of shot up as well. Ilona Maher has obviously grown a massive following over the Olympics. She's now like, the last time I checked it was like over 3 million, whereas before the Olympics she was under 1 million. So like it's crazy the effect that social media kind of has, and I guess the importance of content these days as well. Like content creating is just, it's like, I think when we started the course, we did masters in sports broadcasting together a couple of years ago, and even back then I didn't think that was even like a big kind of thing that you could even work in. So to have that as a job now is just, it blows my mind some days, that to know that you can kind of just like literally work just creating content. It's crazy what like TikTok has brought in as well.
Yeah, I think the introduction of TikTok has massively increased that as well. And I also think it's made Instagram step up their game a little bit, which is great. But yeah, like you said, is it Iona? Is that her name?
So yeah, Ilona Maher.
Ilona, yeah, that was it. Because I saw, and she's just a fantastic example of somebody using their personal brand. Like she's just made such fun content. I saw the one she did like about the Love Island villa. I thought that was hilarious.
It's so funny.
It's topical content, and that's what we all want to watch at the end of the day. We want to get to know the person as well as the athlete, and I think we're seeing a lot more of it now, especially in this Olympics, people sharing TikToks of behind the scenes in the Olympic Village. We probably didn't have that in years gone by. It was more the traditional broadcasting. So I think it's so great now that we're getting the real insight and look into what these athletes go through. And again, it's that level of inspiration for the younger generation as well, because they're seeing it in a bit more of a real way, whereas before it was more traditional on the TV, which still has a place, broadcasting. We've got to stick together on this call, but I think the introduction of TikTok and Instagram, YouTube has been huge for broadcasting.
Yeah, and like you were saying there, in terms of kind of empowering females, it's been brilliant, especially with Ilona as well, saying how like you can be all shapes and sizes and you can be an Olympian, whereas I think growing up, you probably thought you had to be a particular way to even get to that stage. Whereas now it's literally, you obviously got to put the work and the effort in, but it doesn't matter what you look like or anything. You can be there at the Olympics, which is fantastic.
Yeah, I think that's great. And we see a lot of it when we do compare men's sport and women's sport. Like so often, like women's hair or what they're wearing is brought up, when it's so like rarely brought up in the men's game, unless they do something drastic, with their hair, dyeing it a colour. But yeah, it's just so much more common talking about women in general. So I guess we just have to use that to our advantage and maybe make it part of the conversation through the use of social media and just owning those differences a little bit.
Definitely. Would you ever branch out into any other sport? I know your niche is football, but do you have any other interests in being an agent for maybe a different type of athlete?
Yeah, definitely. So we currently have 2 basketball players. So that's sort of my first, I guess, change away from football. but I just represent them off the court. So they have a basketball agent that focuses purely on the moves between basketball clubs. And then I support them from a commercial perspective. So looking at those brand deals. So absolutely, I'm open to all sports. Like we just got approached the other day for paddle, and I'm a huge fan of paddle tennis. I just think it's so much fun. I think it's going to hop off here in the UK. It's massive in Spain. It's massive in Dubai, where I lived before. And I'm so excited for it to take over the UK. So I'm open to anything, pretty much any sport I will get involved with. I feel like I've got to play it like one time to get a bit of an understanding of like the level. Like, you know, even rugby, I've never ever played rugby, but I've really like got this urge since watching the Olympics. I'm like, I just want to play. I mean, I'm absolutely tiny. I'd like probably break in two, but like, I just want to go and have that one day experience of trying it.
I feel like that with everything in the Olympics though, you know, when you start watching it, you can do it, like give it the gymnastics. I'm like, how on earth do they do
it's
that?
amazing.
I feel like I want to go out and do it.
I can't even do a handstand.
No, same.
I'd love to be a gymnast. There are people though that start later on in their life and then they get like the Commonwealth Games or the Olympics and they actually do win medals. It can be done. So I just feel like it's never too late to start, you know.
I'm ready for it, Darcey. Sign me up. We'll pick a sport and we'll do it. No, I'd love to represent some different talent in different sports, and always open to learning. But definitely, I feel like I've got to at least give it a try before I try and represent this person. So I'm open to it.
Love that. It's great that you're open again. You're not restricting yourself to anything, and I feel like I'm quite like that. I'll open my mind to anything, give anything a go. So I think that's a really good kind of view and perspective to have.
Yeah, definitely. And I think like for me, like I learned, well, I had lessons to play golf a couple of years ago, and it was just it was, to be honest, I saw a lot of business deals being done on the golf course, and I was like, I don't want to miss out on this. So I was like, I'm going to sign up for some lessons. And I played hockey when I was at school, so I was like, I was so confident. I was like, I'm going to be so good at this. And then I got there and the teacher was like, hockey players are like the worst people to coach golf because it's so different. But anyway, had a few lessons and just absolutely loved it, like fell in love with it. I'm still absolutely rubbish, but I love it, and I'll go out there. But I got the opportunity to do the sort of PR and the comms for the PGA Golf Tour. So they have, as part of the PGA Golf Tour, they have a tournament in Dubai. It's called the DP World Tour Championship. And you have like the world's sort of best golfers, like Rory McIlroy, Jon Rahm. In fact, Jon Rahm won it that year. And it was just the most incredible experience, like being there for the full week. They have celebrities in on one of the days and they play against all the pro golfers. And it was just like this incredible experience. And I was like, thank God I've had these lessons and I sort of know a little bit of what I'm talking about. But yeah, I'm definitely open to other sports. Like that was one of my favorite memories of working in sports PR, was working for PGA. And you're inspiring me to go to the driving range and practice with my clubs now.
Yeah, I love that. I did have lessons for a bit as well. So I know how hard it is to get a good hit on the golf ball. You can get a few good ones and then a few really bad ones. And it's so frustrating.
But that's what keeps you going back, right? Because you do like 9 shocking ones and then you'll just do 10 one. On the 10th one, it'll just be like the best thing you've ever done. You're like, right, I'm coming back.
Yeah.
I haven't even given it a go.
We'll get a round of golf, girls. We'll get that sorted.
Oh my gosh, I think we should. The men can just, I don't know, do what they want. We'll go play golf. Would you say that working on that tour was one of your biggest achievements in your career so far?
I wouldn't necessarily say it was an achievement. It was a highlight. I absolutely just loved it. And I think that should be what success is, right? Is little things that you really enjoy and you really feel like you add that value and you make a difference. And I felt that from doing that experience. And there's smaller wins along the way as well. Like one of my players is about to sign in a country. Her brief to me was, I want to play in the sun, near to the beach, where there's sunshine for a lot of the year. So that obviously rules out quite a few places. I was like, right, where can we get her to go? And where she's signing is just this amazing club in the sun, by the beach in Australia. And it just like ticks all of those boxes for her as a player. And that to me is like an achievement. It's a success. Like, my player's going there. She's going to be so happy. I can't say the name of the club or the player because it's not been announced yet. But, and that to me is like that success is she's going to live in a new country, play in the sun and live by the beach and just play football and just live her best life. And I'm like, that is success to me, you know.
That sounds like the dream.
Exactly.
Yeah. Do you ever get to travel to these places then as the agent, or do you kind of work more remotely?
I would say I go to more places in the United Kingdom. So if my player's signing for a club there, I'll sort of always go. But this one is a little bit far away. Australia is a little bit far. I did try to get it written into the contract that the agent needed to come and sign it face to face, but we're all digital these days. So, but I'll definitely go out and visit her at some point. But yeah, like, I think if it's that far, probably not for me right now. But if it was somewhere closer in Europe, yeah, definitely. But Australia is maybe a tiny bit too far.
Yeah, I suppose, especially just to sign, but like you said, sign a contract. But
Exactly,
any excuse to travel.
Yeah.
What would you say then has been your biggest challenge in your career?
It's really difficult because I'm such a positive person that I just don't see things as like challenges. Obviously, at the time I see it as a challenge, but I just want to overcome it. I'm like, okay, I'm a very solution driven person. I'm like, okay, there's a problem. Like, how are we going to solve it? Which sometimes can be, I guess, a little bit hectic because I'm so like on all the time. But challenges I have faced and overcome is definitely sort of that prejudice, I would say, as a female in a male dominated industry, particularly when I started in sports marketing, you know, working with people that, let's say, didn't quite make it as a footballer, but maybe still had the sort of the attitude and a bit of a payout of being a footballer in the men's game. So I had to face a lot of personality issues like that, and definitely misogyny, that type of thing. But I think, again, it's just you sort of overcome it, and it's how you move through it and how you learn from that experience. And it really actually gave me a massively thick skin when I was younger. And I think it's helped me now, you know, facing things like trolls on social media or issues in the game now. It's kind of water off a duck's back now and just move forward through it. But definitely, I think those personality things and being a woman in sport has presented some challenges, but it's how you overcome them, I think. So.
Yeah, definitely. And you seem to be thriving anyway, regardless of what any negativity. You would never think it, you know, seeing how you're getting on. So I think that's fantastic. But what advice would you give to, I guess, aspiring young women who would want to be a football agent maybe in the future, or maybe work in sport management? What would your advice be to them?
I think it's very easy to say, like, don't be afraid, right? And just go for it. I think I used to always say that would always be my answer to this question. But I think what I say now is, like, it's okay to be afraid. It's okay to be nervous, but just go for it anyway. And, you know, lean on people. There's so many great people and great women as well now in this sort of industry. Like, I have a lot of people reach out to me on social media, and I always try my best to sort of give these young women the time of day and have a call and see how I can help them or advise them. And I think, yeah, having that sort of nervousness and being a bit afraid, but okay, who can I speak to navigate through this situation? And I think a lot of things now you can learn, right? There's most things you can learn online by chatting to people, by getting a mentor, connecting with people. So it's okay to be a bit nervous, a bit afraid, but just find a way and go for it anyway through great people.
Would you recommend the course that you did to become an agent?
So for FIFA, you have to do the FIFA license. So it's not necessarily like a course. It's basically like a 900-page like legislation document that you have to learn. So you have to do it if you want to be a football agent. If you wanted to do more of like sort of the talent management and the commercial stuff, I think a lot of that is linked to PR. So I'd obviously had a lot of my career in PR. And there are PR and marketing degrees and masters that you can do. Mine was obviously broadcast journalism, but there was a lot of crossover with journalism and PR. So a lot of people on my course actually ended up working for PR agencies or working in marketing, because a lot of it was speaking and writing, and it's all linked together. So, but if you're wanting to be a football agent, you've got to study and you've got to do the FIFA exam, and you have to pass that. And then there are various things you have to do. I'm also registered with the England FA. You have to be like DBS checked. There's a lot of sort of tick boxes that you have to do. So once you've passed that first FIFA license, then it kind of opens the doors to the other elements that you have to do as well.
Yes. I guess, I'm sure there'd be a lot of young girls that would want to be a football agent, but now seeing someone like yourself that are doing it, whereas like growing up, there's something you wouldn't really hear of. So I'm sure you're inspiring so many young girls and young boys as well, I guess, to take following your footsteps as well. So I think it's brilliant.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, there's not many female agents in the game, definitely. I think during the FIFA exams, I think maybe 20 or 30% of people that took the exam passed. And then of that, it was about 3% were women. So we're still very much in the minority. But again, I don't think it's a negative. I think it's something to be celebrated. And yeah, there's a lot of great agents out there, great female agents as well. But maybe just all with slightly different backgrounds. So some old players, I shouldn't say old, I should say ex-players, and they've sort of experienced it from that side and now coming into it, whereas I've experienced more of the PR and the off the pitch stuff and coming into it from that angle. So I think there are lots of great females in the game, but maybe coming to it from different angles. So yeah, I'm all for celebrating, and I work with a lot of great agents, and we sort of recommend each other players if somebody's not a good fit for me, but they're a good fit for them. There's a lot of collaboration there. So yeah, I hope to see more young women in the game. Hopefully we see this grow in the next few years.
Yeah, no doubt we will. We've already seen like an incredible growth in recent years. So no doubt it's just shoot up.
Yeah, definitely. Let's hope so.
So we're coming to the end of our podcast, and you did mention that you've listened to a few, but we usually ask 3 questions to just get to know you a little bit more.
Okay.
So the first one is, if you could choose 2 or 3 dinner party guests, they can be living or deceased.
Okay.
You choose a why?
I mean, I would love to have like a big dinner party. I think I'd want a list of like 10, but I'm obviously not. I'm going to try and stick to 2 to 3, because I think, if it's going to be a party, we might as well have a big party. But obviously we've got to have Serena on there, Serena Williams. She's got to be up there. She'd be my first choice. I also think you need somebody funny. Like we need like a comedian or like somebody who's going to make the table laugh if there's like an awkward silence. So I love Michael McIntyre. I think he's so funny. So I just think his accent makes everything more hilarious as well. So yeah, I'd go for Serena and Michael, which is already like a random combination. My third one, I'm going to stick to 3, would be Elvis Presley. Because I just think like he is just such a legend, like in music and in like the world. Like imagine him today, like he would just be unreal. And I reckon he's got a few like rock and roll stories that he could tell at the dinner party just to make it a bit exciting as well. So they'd be my 3 very random mix.
that is such a random mix, but a good choice, I think. Yeah, a good choice. That'd be an interesting party to go to.
It would.
So next question for you is, if you could have any superpower, what would it be and why?
Okay, so I've thought about this long and hard, because it is a very difficult question, and I feel like I'd like to have more than one power. So my first choice would be, one of 2, either fly, have the ability to fly sort of anywhere, wherever. But then I thought that would take out quite a lot of time of my day. So instead, I'd like to opt for the power to like teleport. So I just like press or like click my fingers and I'm like, somewhere new. I'm like in Texas or I'm in the Maldives, like instead of flying there because it's a long flight. So yeah, teleporting, is that what you call it? I'd do that.
Yeah, I think I'd like that as well. The same reason, cut out the flights. Thanks.
Could just be there and enjoy it then.
Yeah, I'm up for that.
So the third question is, what is your favourite quote and why?
Okay, this is an easy one, and I say it all the time. I don't know if you've watched Kung Fu Panda, but it's a classic from Kung Fu Panda, and it's said by Master Oogway, and I think I'm going to say he's a tortoise. He's not a turtle, but he's like a wise old tortoise. And he says, yesterday is history, tomorrow is a mystery, and today is a gift. That's why they call it the present. And the reason I choose this quote, and I have it actually printed on a poster in my house, is because I think it's really important just to find a bit of joy in like every day. I think even being, in football and everybody thinks it's glitz and glam, and yeah, it can be sometimes, but some days it's literally so boring and you're just sat at your laptop and it's not the glitz and glam. So I think it's just really important to find little bits of joy in every day and just enjoy the present, and don't worry too much about the past and about the future, and just enjoy the day.
I love the positivity. You've got such a good energy about you.
Yeah.
Thank you. The positivity in this is lovely.
Thank you so much. Yeah, very Captain Positive over here, and always adding value.
Yes, love that. Fab. And just before you go then, obviously you're only, like you said, 6 months into kind of full-time doing this as your kind of full-time career and your business. What would be that ultimate kind of goal for you? Where do you see yourself as kind of the dream role then?
World domination, isn't it? I think teleporting everywhere. No, I think for me, we've got some really exciting projects coming up for the PR marketing side, working with a few clubs. And that's something I'd really like to grow over the next 6 months, is that sort of brand side, which also in turn helps the players, which, as hopefully you've heard, I'm really passionate about that. We also do personal brand sessions for clubs sort of to help their players grow their personal brand. And I see a lot of value in helping individuals with that stuff. So I'd really like to see that grow over the next sort of 6 months. And then I do have a 5-year sort of goal plan, but I just think 6 months at a time is a good way to take it. So I think growing that sort of PR marketing on a business and club level is our focus for the next 6 months.
Oh,
sounds
fantastic.
amazing.
Looking forward to seeing you take over.
Thank you so much.
I've got a really good feeling for you, and I know obviously we've just met, but I don't know, it's just you just seem, I feel like just gonna get whatever you want. I just feel that. I don't know why.
Thank you, Darcey. You're manifesting it for me. I appreciate this. No, I also think it's important to evolve, right? And I think this is another thing that I would say to young people is, you don't necessarily have to go to school or uni and do a set degree and learn a set thing. I'm a football agent. I don't even know if there's a degree to be a football agent. I don't think there is, I own my own marketing agency. Nobody teaches you this stuff. So I think it's okay to evolve. And I might be saying this now about brands. Okay, 6 months, we've nailed it with the brands. What are we doing next? And I think evolving is really important. So thank you for manifesting that for me.
Yeah, it's the good energy.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Adding that value, Darcey. I love it.
Amazing. Thank you so much for taking the time to come on and chat to us. It's been really lovely to talk to you and learn a bit more about what is involved in being, a football agent and what you do. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, ladies. It's been great, and keep doing what you're doing with the podcast. There's so many great listens on there with so many inspiring stories. So yeah, keep it up.
We would just like to say a big thank you for listening to our podcast, and we hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, please don't forget to give us a like and subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts, and also hit the follow button on our social media at A Goal in Mind Podcast, where you can keep up to date with all our guests.